So the first thing we want to control is the club face. So when we look at the golf club, this is the heel of the club, this is the toe of the club. So when we address the ball, we want the toe to be toe and heel to be square. And when the club's in motion, when it comes through, we want that to square back up. So what controls that is how our hands are positioned on the grip.
All right.
So the more that my hands are to the right, the more the toe is going to get there. And the more my hands are to the left, my heel is going to get there. So we think of the right palm. If we're going to hit something hard, we're going to slap a wall, that palm's going to flatten out. So the difference between your grip and Tiger Woods' grip is we see your right hand's completely underneath the club. So when we swing freely and relaxed and try to hit something hard, that's going to turn to the left. We'll check that one out at impact here. So if we compare that to where we addressed it, we see that that thumb is getting more over to the left, so the face is starting to get closed, which is going to make your ball go which way? To the left. And then once the ball starts to do funny things, that starts to affect what your body does. And we're going to see that as we get into it a little bit more. But we want to get the understanding right away that where your hands are controls the club face. Okay. And then the ball obviously is controlled the same way. So when you're out playing golf, would you rather have a shot that's a little on an uphill lie or one that's a little on a downhill lie? Where left foot's a little higher than your right? Uphill lie. Easiest shot in golf to hit. Downhill lie is the hardest shot in golf to hit. Doesn't matter if it's me, you, or Tiger Woods, we're going to have a tendency to hit behind it. And the ball's going to have a tendency to go to the right, i.e. your driver, which you're telling me what's going on there. So when we look at this, the shaft of the club is straight and both your arms are the same length. So when we grip the golf club, your left hand's going to be 5 inches higher than your right. Okay. Which in turn is going to make your left shoulder be about 5 inches higher than your right. And that's going to tilt your spine about 15 or so degrees to the right, which gives us that uphill lie. All right. Now when we go up to the top, because of how your hands are on the club, a little bit of sway with your lower body, we see that your body switches to a downhill lie position. From behind here, everything looks really good. Your belt buckle turns about 45 degrees, your shoulders turn about 90 degrees. Everything's spot on there. The left arm is dissecting the right shoulder and the club's parallel to the target line. Now as we come back into it, we're going to see that Rod starts to get back on that uphill line. So in essence, your upper body went this way because we went from a downhill line back to an uphill line. Okay. And knowing all the other sports, whether you're playing basketball, volleyball, if you're running away from the net, trying to hit it to the net, it's very hard to get any bit of force. So then we see this funny little release here with your left hand and how it goes through this way. Your left wrist braking rather than releasing it. We'll compare it to a model here in a minute. And the weight's moving over to the left side, the right knee's firing just like we should see. And we still don't see very much release here. What I mean by release is your right arm rolling over the left. Okay. And then into a good balanced finish. Now keep in mind here that we're comparing you to some of the best in the world. Right? These guys play more than 15 rounds a year.
And a few more lessons than me do.
Yeah, it had a few more lessons. So we see very similar in the setups. We see Brandt Snedeker's upper body's tilted to the right, just as yours is tilted to the right.
Right.
Now the one thing that's different is we see how it's squared off to the line.
Yeah.
You can see that your chest is pointing too far to the left.
Okay.
And what we want to see here is your right shoulder is going to be outside of your right hip. You can see because you're leaning forward, you're fairly even with where that right hip is. And I want to see you tilted a little bit more to the right.
All right.
But part of the reason you do this is because your ball goes so high. You really hit pretty high shots, right?
Do I?
It's just what looks like going out.
Well, when I hit it right, yeah, it does go pretty high. Most of the time I would get just a little too on top of it. And it has that ting to it when you kind of hit it with the blade of the...
Right. So uphill line on the top of the backswing.
Huh.
Here, so get a good comparison of that.
Yeah.
So we see a big difference in where we are. Now, again, when we go back down to impact, we're going to see the body's in relatively the same position. You know, from all the other sports that you played, you know, we can see that both weights down on the left side, but we're going to see a difference in the release of the club, where we can see that left wrist remains flat, and as we go through here, we're going to see how that starts to cup. So what that does is it takes the golf club, and you know, let's just say your 5-iron there, or whatever club we were hitting, has 24 degrees of loft. When you back it up this way, it's going to add loft to it. So we're going to hit a 7-iron with a 5-iron with a shaft, which is going to make it go miles up in the air. And you also mentioned that it doesn't produce a lot of spin, so your ball doesn't want to stop when it's green.
No.
And what creates backspin is a downward strike. You know, then the scoring line, part of the ball gets caught in the scoring line, and that generates backspin. And it also makes it why the golf ball goes straight. You know, just like a ballistics, a bullet spins when it comes out. Backspin, because of the dimples of the ball, gives it lift and it holds its line and makes it, when as it's coming down with a lot of spin, obviously the ball's going to come down slower because it has more lift. So when we have a flat left wrist at impact and the club approaches at, you can see that even though I can't turn the shutter up anymore because I don't have any more light, but your club is at its bottom here and now it starts its way up. When we look at Snedeker's ball, we can see that the club is on the ground to the left of the ball, or to the right of the ball, his left. So his bottom, where the club touches the ground, is actually to the left. So he's not trying to slide the club underneath. The club has loft, downward strike, generates the backspin.
Okay.
And you can, obviously, when that left wrist is breaking, the club's going to be moving on its ascent when it hits the ball. So that brings in, you know, the vibration that you spoke about earlier, when it hits towards the bottom of the club. So as we go through, we see how much release there is, and here how much hold on there is.
Yeah.
But I can still see your left hand. For his, I can start to see his left hand underneath.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter if it's Tiger Woods, we see the same thing. Here at impact, we're going to see left wrist is actually pronated here. And you can see that, you know, here's the ball, and that club is striking. Let's get that guy out of the way. Your shaft is bending like that as well. Again, I can't turn it up anymore. But as we go through, we're going to see, look how soon that releases.
Yeah.
So that's your cause of left and right. Because if we don't do it enough, meaning that we don't lean enough to the right, you're left now, if you're swinging at it, right as we're looking at it, and if we don't break enough, it's very hard for us to return it square because of partially of how we held it and how our body works.
Okay.
So when this lines up and you know, you play a little bit, your timing gets together because, you know, just looking at this, obviously a lot of coordination. You know, when we break just enough, it's great. You know, you can go, you can par, or you can play 5 holes in a row under par. You know, as you probably had, where you had a great stretch of holes. But the problem is you're walking a very tight rope here because if you do this too much, it goes left. If you don't do it enough, it goes right. And we want to change that release to let the big muscles do it more with your back, shoulders, and arms, so we can start to get some release. So as we examine this a little closer, what we're going to do is, I want to get your chest to square off to the ball, get your upper body to tilt a little more, not so much weight on your left side.
Okay.
As we go back, we're going to maintain where your right leg is, instead of having that slide through. So if we look at Snedeker, we measure where his right leg is. As we go back, you can see him turn inside of that. And that's what's going to maintain that spine tilt to the right, because just like you, If his lower body slid out here, his upper body would lean this way,
Yeah.
and his spine would tilt funny at the top. So now we're starting to get that look. We just did it by setup similar, just a little bit more to the right here. You can see your chest is a little bit more square. As we go back, there's that lower body sliding out. And there's the upper body a little bit more to the right. I mean, you know, the one thing to note here is that too many people try to keep their head still. When we want our head to move slightly to the right, your head's there. And it's fine for your head to move off the ball to the right. Just like we would if we're going to hit a tennis ball, if we're going to hit anything that way. We're going to move a little bit to the right because where our upper body is. And this could still be a little bit more work because I'd love to see it with this much tilt.
All right.
You know, you can see the difference there. But I'll let's try that with a golf club. We'll put that on just so we got that. You know, so again, just look at the circle in the arc. We want the bottom of that circle to be over to the left. So as we go back and we don't rock our hip out, we've moved our circle over here to the right. Now we got to get it to move back to the left. And that's what happens, that's what gives power in golf, where we see the lower body actually driving forward over here like we see with Brant here. We still don't quite see it because we're still just a little crooked. Great stuff. There's that right leg staying underneath. There's our circle to the right. Now as we come down, we still got a little bit of that old fall back. So the club's moving low to high once again. Not as bad. The left wrist is starting to flatten. And we're starting to see a little bit more release. Let's keep going. So when we look at this, what's changed? Well, the grip's changed quite a bit. Your chest is now at the ball versus over here to the left. Huge difference on the top, right? This one looks much more sporty, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
A little bit of thought because it's taking just a touch longer. Not real worried about how long that is right now.
Okay.
And as we come down into it, we're going to see here's that steeper angle of approach. And here the club's on the ground.
Huh. Well, yeah, I never knew that about the club. I always aimed a little bit behind it, just so I could
Right.
hit the
It's
ball.
detrimental for chipping when you aim a little bit behind it. You know, so changing your swing is a three-step process. What am I currently doing? What do I want to do? And how am I going to get there? So we know what you're currently doing. We know what you want to do, and we know how you're going to get there. You're going to make rehearsal backswings like this. Then the understanding of downward strikes, flat spot to the left, bottom of the arc, flat spot. And then hands control the club face. If you do those three things, it's the fastest way to get better.